Second Amendment. Where do you stand on the Second
I'm not taking anybody's guns. Oh, there was a time in my life, my father was killed by a gun. My uncle was killed by a gun. I saw what it did to my family.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen what it does to other people. I've spent years of my life in rural areas in this country, and I lived for 2 years in Alabama. I've lived in South Dakota. I grew up in Virginia. And I know that there's a gun culture in this country that sees that as an existential right.
Do you see it as a right? I mean, it is a right. It's in our Bill of Rights.
I believe in the Constitution,
okay.
and it's part of the Second Amendment. So, yeah. I think that we need to work with each other to understand why we're having the gun violence in this country that no other country has. Something happened because, when I was a kid, we had gun clubs in our schools, and people would bring their 22s to school, and they'd leave them in the car, or they'd bring them in, and, nobody was shooting at people. And something happened. There's never been a time in human history where individuals with guns were walking into crowds of strangers, crowds of children, and starting to butcher them. That's never happened.
No.
Suddenly that started happening around Columbine. And the question is why it's happening, and why is it happening in this country? And, Switzerland has a comparable level of gun ownership.
Correct.
Everybody's required to have a gun in their house. And the last mass shooting they had in Switzerland was 21 years ago. The last mass shooting.
Culture is sick.
We have mass shootings every 21 hours. So the question is, why is that happening? NIH is, under its own rules, is not allowed to look for the answer to that question. There's a lot of things NIH won't do. NIH won't look for the cause of the autism epidemic. They won't look for the cause of peanut allergies. They won't look at any of these things because they're frightened that there's a big shot, a big food processor, big ag, big pharma that is going to be angry at them with the answer. So they simply won't do it. And one of the things they have not looked at, they have a rule. Since 1997, they have not been able to look at the cause of gun violence. When Columbine happened, 5 of the victims of the families sued, I think, Prozac. And, there are SSRIs. I've talked about this. I'm not saying this is the answer. I'm saying it's something that we should look at, that SSRIs have black box labels and benzos that say known to cause suicidal and homicidal behavior.
Correct.
It says that.
Right.
Okay. And we're the only country that has this level. 120 million, 240 million doses a year of these.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, and after Columbine, that's when it started happening. So I'm not saying there's other things that could be too.
Yes. I understand.
It could be video games. It could be social media. There's a lot.
It could be a lot of factors.
There's a lot of factors, but
Correct.
we should know what it is, because one thing we do know, it has nothing to do with the number of guns, because there hasn't been any legislation out there that has diminished or increased
Correct.
the number of guns during that period. It's been roughly constant. Oh, if you have a scientific mind, which I do, I'm looking for the variables that change during that period.
Right.
And that's what the CDC ought to be doing. And now, because I'm having this conversation with you, I'm going to get ridiculed. I'm going to, that Kennedy said that SSRIs are calling it, which I've never said. But,
no, it is. It's reasonable to put that on the table.
Should make sense to everybody in the world, which is, let's figure out why that's happening, and not, and then deal with it. And let's make sure we know what the culprit is.